Picture a Tuesday. Your alarm goes off. You scroll your phone, make coffee, sit in traffic, stare at a screen, eat lunch at your desk, sit in more traffic, scroll again, and fall asleep doing it one more time. That is your day. That is the shape of your life. But here is what no one asks. What did a human day actually look like before any of that existed? Not just before phones, before jobs, before agriculture, before cities, clocks, and calendars. What did your ancestors actually do when the sun came up? The answer is far stranger than you think. For 95% of human history, your species lived as hunter-gatherers. That sounds like a job description. It is not. It is a way of existing so different from yours that if you dropped a modern human into it, you would not recognize the pace of it. You would not recognize the silence. You would not recognize how much of it looked, from the outside, like doing nothing at all. And that is exactly where this gets interesting. The first thing to understand is time. You experience time as a resource. You manage it, waste it, save it, spend it. You feel guilty when you run out of it. That relationship between humans and time is, in the full span of your species, brand new. Anthropologist Marshall Sahlins spent years studying hunter-gatherer societies in the 20th century and published his findings in a 1966 paper that upended everything economists thought they knew about prehistoric life. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they had more things, but because they had more time. His research found that foraging populations spent as few as 3 to 5 hours per day on what we would call work. Acquiring food, maintaining tools, that was it. The rest of the day was theirs. So what did they do with it? They talked. This is not a small thing. Researcher Robin Dunbar at the University of Oxford spent decades studying the role of language in human evolution and found that roughly 65% of human conversation across cultures is social in nature. Gossip, stories, who did what, who said what, who owes whom. This was not idle chatter, it was the operating system of the group. It built trust. It enforced social norms. It spread information about which plants were dangerous and which rivers were rising. Talking was not a break from the work of survival, it was the work. Your ancestors were also doing something you do every night but have been taught to see as passive. They were watching, sitting, observing the world around them. A bird landing on a particular tree. The direction the wind shifted. The behavior of animals at the waterhole. Modern Western culture has given you the idea that stillness is laziness. That if you are not producing something, you are wasting time. Hunter-gatherers had no such idea. Watching was information gathering. Waiting was strategy. Patience was a survival skill sharpened over thousands of generations into something that barely exists in you anymore. Children played, constantly, and the adults watched them and played too. Anthropologist David Lancy at Utah State University spent his career studying childhood across cultures and found that in foraging societies, children are given extraordinary freedom of movement and unstructured time. There is no curriculum. There is no schedule. A child wanders, a child experiments. A child gets hurt, recovers, and learns. Play was not preparation for real life. Play was real life. It was how skills transferred, how roles were rehearsed, how the group reproduced itself, generation after generation. Your ancestors made things, not in the industrial sense, slowly, deliberately. A spear point was not assembled in a factory. It was knapped by hand, stone on stone, for hours. A basket was woven over days. A piece of leather was worked until it became clothing. The making of objects was not separate from living. It was woven into the texture of the day. Craftwork, repair, construction, but done at a pace you would find difficult to sustain, because the pace had no deadline attached to it. They moved their bodies in ways that had no name for exercise. You walked to the gym. Your ancestors walked because there was no other way to exist. Estimates based on modern forager populations suggest a daily walking range of between 6 and 16 kilometers, depending on season and terrain. But this movement was not a block of time carved out for fitness. It was dispersed throughout the entire day. A slow walk to a water source, a careful tracking stalk across open ground, a climb, a swim. The body was never still for the lengths of time yours is, and they slept differently, completely differently. Jerome Siegel at UCLA led a landmark study published in 2015 examining sleep patterns in 3 hunter-gatherer populations in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia. Groups with minimal exposure to artificial light. What his team found contradicted almost everything sleep science assumed,